A record number of Americans are leaving the United States. America is now witnessing a wave of emigration.
U-Hauls tell you everything about a state. If more trucks are leaving than arriving, something is very wrong. There was a time when every state in America felt like it had something special. California had the beaches and the dreams. New York had the hustle and the lights. Louisiana had the jazz and the jambalaya. You grew up watching movies set in these places and thinking, someday I'm going to live there. Well, someday came, and then someday left. Because right now, millions of Americans are packing U-Hauls and driving away from the states they once loved. Not for vacation, not for a break, for good. Forever. Done. Today, 10 famous American states nobody wants to move to anymore. And number 1, the most iconic state in the country, losing more people than any other state in America, and it's not even close. Let's get into it. And if your state is on this list, don't shoot the messenger. Shoot the property taxes. They deserve it. Number 10, California. We're starting with the state that sold the entire world a dream. California, the Golden State, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, Malibu, surfing, sunsets. If America had a highlight reel, California would be the whole first half. In the 70s and 80s, California was the place. You packed your car, drove Route 66, and chased a future that smelled like salt air and opportunity. Families bought 3-bedroom houses in the suburbs for $40,000. Gas was cheap. The freeways actually moved. You could be a teacher, a firefighter, a mechanic, and still own a home with a backyard and a lemon tree. That was the California promise. Work hard, live well, die tan. That promise expired somewhere around 2005, and nobody sent a memo. Today, the median home in California costs $809,000. The state income tax is 12.3%, the highest in America. Over 230,000 residents leave every single year. U-Haul ranked California dead last, 50th out of 50 states for 6 consecutive years. 6. Nobody's even close to that streak. And where are they going? Texas. 102,000 Californians move to Texas every single year, the largest migration corridor in the entire country. Same sunshine, no income tax, a house that costs less than a California garage. 441 businesses have relocated their headquarters out of California since 2018. Not just people leaving, companies leaving, jobs leaving, tax revenue leaving. The whole ecosystem is slowly packing up while Sacramento argues about plastic straws, bans gas stoves, and spends 20 years building a high-speed train that still doesn't go anywhere. California isn't just losing a population, it's losing a generation. Man, your parents bought a house in California for 40 grand. Now that same house costs 800,000, and somehow, wages didn't go up 800%. California didn't stop being beautiful, it stopped being affordable. And when the dream costs more than the dreamer can pay, the dreamer moves to Texas. And that was only number 10. Subscribe, because number 1 is losing people faster than any state in history. Alright, moving on. Number 9, Hawaii. Hawaii, the Aloha State, where every postcard looks like a screensaver and every sunset looks photoshopped. There was a time when moving to Hawaii was the ultimate American fantasy. You'd retire there, or you'd drop everything, move to Maui, learn to surf, and open a little shack selling shaved ice. That was the dream. Barefoot, beachside, blissful. No alarm clocks, no spreadsheets, just waves and sunburn. Reality is a little different. Hawaii has the highest percentage of outbound moves of any state in America, 57%. More people leaving than arriving. The cost of living is 90% above the national average. A gallon of milk costs $7. A modest 3-bedroom home on Oahu runs over $1 million. And your salary? Hawaii's wages don't come close to matching the cost. You work paradise hours for mainland pay, except everything costs double. Then in August 2023, the Maui wildfire devastated Lahaina, one of the deadliest wildfires in modern American history. Over 100 lives lost, thousands displaced. A historic town burned to the ground. The recovery is still ongoing, and for many residents, it was the final push to leave. Between 2024 and 2025, Hawaii's population dropped outright, down about 2,000 people. That doesn't sound like much until you remember this is a state people supposedly dream about moving to. Nobody dreams about leaving paradise. But Paradise charges $8 for a dozen eggs, so here we are, living the nightmare in paradise. Hawaii is what happens when a fantasy collides with a price tag. The beaches are still gorgeous, the sunsets are still perfect, but you can't eat a sunset, and you definitely can't afford rent with one. Hawaii Missouri is the only state where the view from your window costs more than the house behind it. Number 8, Louisiana. Louisiana, the Pelican State, home of Mardi Gras, jazz music, crawfish boils, and some of the best food on the planet. If America had a personality test, Louisiana would be the loud, fun one at the party who you love hanging out with, but definitely wouldn't trust with your car keys. In the 70s and 80s, Louisiana was a vibe. New Orleans was the cultural capital of the South. The music scene was alive. The food was legendary. Families gathered for Sunday crawfish boils that lasted until the sun went down. Life was slower, warmer, and seasoned better than anything north of the Mason-Dixon line. But Louisiana in 2025 is a different story. For the second year in a row, Louisiana is the #1 outbound state in America according to Atlas Van Lines. 66% of all moves are outbound. 2 out of every 3 moving trucks leaving the state are loaded up and headed somewhere else. Why? Start with the hurricanes. Katrina in 2005 broke the state. Then Rita, Gustav, Laura, Ida, Delta. The insurance industry looked at Louisiana's coastline and said, we're out. Home insurance premiums have doubled or tripled. Some companies stopped writing policies altogether. You can't insure against the ocean deciding your house is temporary. Then there's the crime. New Orleans regularly ranks among the top 5 most dangerous cities. And outside the city, economic stagnation has hollowed out rural communities that once thrived on oil and agriculture. Man, Louisiana feeds you better than any state in America, but it can't keep you safe from the storms, and it can't keep your insurance company from ghosting you. The soul food is still incredible, but the souls are leaving, and they're taking their recipes with them. Every crawfish boil that moves to Houston is a tiny funeral for Louisiana's culture. Number 7, West Virginia. West Virginia, the mountain state. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. John Denver sang that in 1971, and apparently, a lot of West Virginians have been following his directions. Right out of the state. In the 50s and 60s, West Virginia was coal country. Hard work, but honest work. Minding families made decent livings. Small towns had main streets with general stores, barber shops, and diners, where everybody knew your name and your grandmother's maiden name and what you had for breakfast. Friday nights were football games. Saturdays were hunting. Sundays were church and pot roast. That world is gone. The coal industry collapsed. Mines closed. Jobs disappeared. And then the opioid crisis hit West Virginia harder than any state in the country. In 2021, West Virginia had the highest drug overdose death rate in America, 90.9 deaths per 100,000 people, nearly double the national average. Entire communities were hollowed out by prescription pills that turned into heroin that turned into fentanyl. Between 2024 and 2025, West Virginia lost population outright. Young people are leaving for literally anywhere with a job listing and cell phone reception. The average age of the state keeps climbing because the only people staying are the ones too rooted or too old to go. John Denver told everyone to take him home to West Virginia. In 2026, West Virginia is looking at those lyrics and whispering, take me anywhere else. Preferably somewhere with fiber optic internet and a functioning economy. Number 6. Mississippi. Mississippi, the Magnolia State. And honestly, this one doesn't surprise anyone. Including Mississippi. If there's a worst of list in America, Mississippi is probably on it. Dead last in education, dead last in healthcare, near the bottom in median income, highest poverty rate in the nation at about 19%. If America were a group project, Mississippi would be the kid who showed up late, didn't read the assignment, and somehow still passed because the teacher felt bad. In the old days, Mississippi had a charm. Small towns with wraparound porches, sweet tea on hot afternoons, catfish frying in cast iron skillets, neighbors who waved from their trucks, gospel music floating out of white steepled churches on Sunday mornings. There was a slowness to life that wasn't laziness. It was intentional. People chose to sit still and be present. But that charm runs into a wall when your hospital closes, your school can't hire teachers, and your kids move to Atlanta the day they turn 18. Mississippi has been losing its young people for decades. The ones who leave rarely come back, and the ones who stay are stuck in a cycle that the state government seems deeply uninterested in fixing. Mississippi isn't being abandoned abandoned because people hate it. It's being abandoned because it refuses to invest in itself. The sweet tea is still sweet, the porches are still wide, the catfish is still fried to perfection. But the opportunities? They packed up and moved to Atlanta years ago, and they didn't leave a forwarding address. Number 5, Connecticut. Connecticut, the Constitution State. Once upon a time, the wealthiest state in America, hedge fund capital, suburban paradise, the place where New York executives raised their families in 4-bedroom colonials with 2-car garages and leaf-covered driveways in October. In the 80s and 90s, Connecticut was the American dream, with a zip code and a country club membership. Greenwich, Westport, Darien, towns where the public schools were better than most private schools and the property values only went up. Thanksgiving in Connecticut looked like a magazine cover. Golden leaves, stone walls, kids in sweaters, and a turkey big enough to feed the neighborhood. Then the bills arrived. Property taxes in Connecticut are among the highest in the nation. Combined state and local tax burden is crushing. A modest home in a good school district costs $700,000 to $1 million. Insurance costs keep climbing. Energy costs in winter can make your eyes water faster than the cold. Young people, the ones who grew up in those beautiful colonials, are leaving. They can't afford to buy in the towns they were raised in. The towns that built their childhood now price out their adulthood. So they move south. North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida. States where your paycheck doesn't disappear into property taxes and heating oil. Connecticut is the state where your parents thrived and your kids can't afford to exist. Generational wealth built on a foundation that the next generation can't even step onto. The American dream worked here for 40 years. Then it sent an invoice, and nobody could pay it. Number 4, Massachusetts. Massachusetts, the Bay State. Boston, Harvard, MIT, the Red Sox, the accent, the attitude. If Connecticut is old money whispering, Massachusetts is old money yelling at you from a moving car. In the old days, and by old days I mean the 90s, Massachusetts was booming. The tech corridor along Route 128 was competing with Silicon Valley. Boston's universities were pumping out graduates who stayed and built careers. Families lived in triple-deckers in Dorchester and Somerville, paying $800 a month for rent. The T got you anywhere you needed to go. Was affordable enough that a teacher married to a firefighter could own a home in a decent neighborhood and raise 3 kids without selling plasma on weekends. That math doesn't work anymore. The average rent in Boston is now over $3,000 a month. Median home price in the metro has crossed $650,000. A 1-bedroom apartment in Cambridge costs more than a 3-bedroom house in Nashville. And the roads, the legendary, potholed, rage-inducing Massachusetts roads, somehow got worse while the costs got higher. More residents are heading out than arriving now. Move Buddha data shows Massachusetts among the states where outbound moves are increasing. The cold winters were always a negative, but people used to tolerate them because the economy made it worth shivering. Now you're shivering and broke. Man, Massachusetts gave America its independence, and now Americans are declaring independence from Massachusetts. The irony would be funny if the heating bill wasn't so depressing. Boston still thinks it's the greatest city in America, and it might be right. But being the greatest city nobody can afford doesn't win you any trophies, just empty apartments. Number 3, Illinois. Illinois, the Prairie State, home of Chicago. Deep dish pizza, the blues, Michael Jordan, Oprah, the Bean. That one guy at every party who won't shut up about how amazing Chicago is, even though he left 3 years ago. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Chicago was one of the greatest cities on earth. Not one of, the greatest. The architecture, the lakefront, the neighborhoods, each one a different country crammed into the same city. You had Polish delis in Wicker Park, Mexican bakeries in Pilsen, and Italian beef stands on every other corner. The L train connected it all. Life was loud, affordable, and magnificent. Then the taxes came, and the crime headlines came. And the winters. The winters were always there. But they felt colder when your wallet was empty, and your neighbor just moved to Austin. Illinois has lost 139,000 residents in net domestic migration between 2020 and 2024. 56,000 left in the last year alone, one of the largest absolute losses nationally. Chicago alone loses over 42,000 domestic residents per year. Property taxes in Illinois are among the highest in America. The state has a pension crisis that makes your eyes cross when you read the numbers. And every winter, the city reminds you that negative 20 degrees is a lifestyle choice, not a weather report. People still love Chicago. They love the pizza, they love the lakefront, they love telling you about it at parties. They just don't love living there anymore. The deep dish is still deep, the taxes are deeper, and the winters are the deepest of all. Chicago is a love story that ends with you checking Zillow for houses in Nashville at 2 a.m. under 3 blankets. Number 2, New Jersey. New Jersey, the Garden State. The only thing growing in New Jersey is the line of U-Hauls heading south. For 6 consecutive years, 6, New Jersey has been ranked the #1 outbound state in America by United Van Lines. Not number 2, not in the top 5, number 1. 6 years in a row. That's not a trend, that's a tradition. New Jersey has turned leaving into a competitive sport, and it's been the undefeated champion since 2019. In the 80s and 90s, New Jersey was the sweet spot. You worked in New York, lived in Jersey, and got a house with a yard for half the price of a Manhattan apartment. The diners were legendary. Open 24 hours, chrome everything, coffee that tasted like it was brewed during the Cold War and hadn't stopped since. Bruce Springsteen was singing about these streets. The shore was packed every summer. Pork roll, or Taylor ham, depending on which part of the state you wanted to fight about, was a religion. But the Jersey math stopped working. Property taxes in New Jersey average over $9,000 per year, the highest in the nation. Some towns exceed $15,000. You're paying a mortgage and a rent to the government just to exist. Add state income tax, car insurance rates among the highest in the country, and toll booths that charge you to leave your own neighborhood, and the calculation becomes simple. It's cheaper to live somewhere else. New Jersey used to be where you moved to escape New York prices. Now New Jersey is the price people are escaping from. The diners are still open, the pork roll is still cooking, but the customers are in North Carolina now. They're eating at Waffle House instead. And honestly, they don't miss the tolls. Number 1, New York. New York, the Empire State, the Big Apple, Statue of Liberty, Times Square, Broadway, the most famous state on earth. If California sold the world a dream, New York sold the world a fantasy. You come here with nothing. You work 3 jobs. You eat dollar pizza at 2 a.m. and one day you make it. Sinatra sang about it. Jay-Z rapped about it. New York was where you went when you wanted your life to matter. In the 70s and 80s, even through the crime, people came from everywhere. Kansas, Italy, China. They showed up at JFK with a suitcase and a prayer and built lives their grandchildren now photograph from Brooklyn rooftops. But the numbers don't lie. Between 2020 and 2024, New York lost 446,000 residents, the largest decline of any state. 119,000 leave every year. The biggest corridor? New York to Florida. 91,000 annually, making the same drive your retired neighbor made in 2003, except now they're 35 and still working. Manhattan apartments average $4,000 a month. A studio in Brooklyn costs $2,800. A bagel costs $5. Getting your hair cut costs $60. Raising a child in New York costs $340,000 before college. That's not a child. That's a mortgage for a human being. Man, New York used to be where you came with nothing and built everything. Now it's where you come with everything and New York takes it. The skyline is still beautiful. The pizza is still $1, but electricity costs more here too. The Empire State isn't crumbling, it's just pricing out the people who built it. The hedge fund managers are fine, but the teacher, the nurse, the firefighter, the bodega owner, the people who make New York feel like New York, they're loading the U-Haul. New York doesn't die. It just becomes a place only rich people can afford to love. And a city that only serves the wealthy isn't a city anymore. It's a resort with a subway. So there you have it, 10 famous American states nobody wants to move to anymore. From California's broken promise to New York's vanishing middle class. From Louisiana's storms to New Jersey's tax trap. These states weren't always like this. They were the places your parents moved to, where families were raised. And none of it cost $1 million. Now, they're the places people are leaving, one U-Haul at a time. If you live in any of these states, or already left, drop it in the comments. And subscribe. More videos like this are coming. See you in the next one. Take care.